Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our very first webinar of August. My name is Sonia Siddiqui, and joining us today is William Stewart from Equitech. Hi, William.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Awesome. We're great. And I see people are still logging in and probably hooking up to the audio right now. So before we dive into William's presentation, I just want to make sure that everyone understands how to best watch the webinar today. Please note that you are all on listen only mode, so we won't be able to hear you, but William will be taking your questions towards the end of his presentation. For that, please type your questions into the questions tab, probably found at the bottom of your screen. And for best results, please use a laptop or a desktop computer using Google Chrome as your browser. And if you are using mobile devices such as tablets or cell phones, I highly recommend downloading the Zoom app for best results. We always have a webinar survey at the end of our webinar, so please do fill it out, as your feedback is always appreciated to better our webinars in the future. So just to tell you a little bit about ACCESS, we've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. Just in the past year alone, we were able to serve over 34,000 job seekers. We work with over 2,200 employers and community partners, different associations and organizations that help our clientele get employed and job ready. And we have over 30 tailored programs, which include a lot of our sector-specific bridging programs. We've got programs for women in specific, and then we've got programs for youth. So there are a lot of programs that are coming and going. So check out our website to find out if there's a program that best suits you. We also have a pre-arrival program for people who have not yet landed in Canada, and we can start helping them before they even land. And we've got 7 locations in the GTA. Right now, we are serving all of our programs online. So our location mainly is our online location currently. So I'm going to hand it over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen to let William share his, and we'll dive into his presentation.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I'm just going to share screens here because obviously I can't walk and talk at the same time. All right, so everybody can see this. If you can't see the screens, let me know immediately. I'll stop because quite often I screw things up. But so this is a very informal type of presentation. So I'm going to talk to you about what we do, okay? We're going to talk about transition of equity. And when I say equity, we're talking about employment equity and diversity. You've all heard the term in diversity, inclusion, but what does it really mean to you, the job seeker? This is actually a hidden job market specifically designed and tailored for you. So I'm going to show you the reason why it was companies created it and how you were going to best access it. I'm going to talk about, Canadian stats are pluralistic society, so you understand that. What Equitech is, what it is that we do, it's a unique business. As I mentioned, it's kind of the hidden job market for you. It's another hidden job market, I should say, not the hidden job market. There's a couple out there, but Equitech is one that's specifically targeted to you. And then, of course, the main reason why you're here, I'm going to give you some tips and explain what's happening to your resume when you apply online to applicant tracking systems. Many of you apply online and you never hear anything back and you wonder why, what's going on. I'm going to explain what happens, and I'm going to give you some tips to help you get through the applicant tracking system so you end up getting some calls. All right, so let's move ahead from here. So let's talk about the transition of equity. You've heard many things. You've heard it, you've heard the term employment equity. You hear companies talking about diversity, especially now, diversity, workforce inclusion, and our most recent, we're talking about a call for change, which is addressing systemic racism within the culture of organizations, which is what, employment equity, diversity, and inclusion, they were all about that call for change and erasing and addressing racism. Just previously, you know, just as little as 6 months ago, everybody danced around the R word and wouldn't use it, but I'm glad it's out because this is exactly what this initiative is about. So this is how it started, okay? And giving you the background about this because it's going to help you position your thinking when you're applying to these companies. So back in the 90s, the federal government introduced employment equity, the Employment Equity Act, so it's an actual law. They identified 4 demographics from our countries that face barriers to employment. Now, it's important to understand that this is not a quota law. It's not like affirmative action in the States where companies have to have so many women and so many people of color and so many Hispanic and so many. It's not like that. What it is, it's the Employment Equity Act is this huge internal process within a corporation. And it's intended to break down the barriers. It involves training and buy-in from senior management and things, but there's one component of it, which is called the Employment Systems Review. That is the outside component, and that's what requires companies to go into the communities and invite people from these 4 groups to come back and apply for the job. Now, these 4 groups of people that faced barriers to employment, we refer to them as the 4 designated groups, and they are people of First Nations, Aboriginal people or Indigenous people, people living with disabilities, visible minorities, and women. So the government realized that these 4 demographics weren't getting an equal shot at applying for jobs. So they put this act together to be able to say, okay, companies, you have to do this. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. Now, the federal government could only influence a certain amount of jobs. They couldn't make all companies across the country do this. So they could only influence a handful of companies themselves, of course, the ministries and crown corporations like Canada Post, Bank of Canada, and things like that. Those crown corporations had to be compliant to the Employment Equity Act. Other organizations like that are getting CRTC licenses, radio, television, they all have to comply to the Employment Equity Act as well. But there are also a group of companies that are over 100 employees and do over $200,000 a year business with the federal government. And they're referred to as federal contractors. And they are also compliant to the Employment Equity Program, which means they have to be able to have a mechanisms to get their jobs out to you, so you will have an opportunity to apply for these jobs. So that represented about 3,000 companies or so, maybe 3,500, and in various sizes. So that was starting along, but it was a small little flower, employment equity. There was a lot of resistance to it. But, you know, again, that was the 90s. There was a lot of resistance to everything in the 90s, if you don't remember it. Then in 2000, what happened was organizations, or rather companies in particular, companies that are selling more mainstream, selling more to the market themselves, realize that, hey, people in this country are different. They're speaking different languages. They look different. They're coming from different countries, but they still want to, you know, I, as a person selling my computers or my couches or my cars, I want to be able to be able to access this new market. I want to be able to have these new customers come in and buy my widgets and my things from my company. And that meant I'm going to have to find somebody to employ them that's representative of this new market, okay, to be able to you know, help me access this new market. See, in our last census, where in Canada we take a census of how many people are here in the country and what their backgrounds are and their ethnic background, it became mathematically, Canada in 2016 became a pluralistic society. We used to be a multicultural society, and a multicultural society tended to have one demographic as a majority, but a pluralistic society is actually a society of minorities. And that's what Canada is. We're just a group of people all hanging out, okay? So there is no majority demographic in Canada. So companies, as you can understand, the challenge now is they don't have a central marketplace. Now it's a whole bunch of little groups that they have to market to and learn to market to effectively in order to stay in business. Okay, and they had to recognize this change to be able to be competitive. So diversifying their workforce was important. And that's where you started hearing the word diversity a lot. Diversity is our strength. Diversity says we're a diverse organization. Diversity, we love, we breathe, we live diversity. Organizations now are throwing that word out so unconsciously now, they don't even realize they're saying it. But when you see organizations talk about diversity, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about, because we have such a pluralistic society, that we have to be able to find ways to access these different societies, because not everybody is the same, right? And treating people the same isn't treating people equally or equitable, right? So that's the way it works. So in 2010, then we came around. You can see this happens every decade. So in 2010, you started hearing a new word called workforce inclusion. Workforce inclusion, an inclusive culture, an inclusive society. What did that mean? What does that mean? Well, workforce inclusion in particular tends to deal with the boomers. That's people like myself. We're about to lose 7 million people from our workforce, okay? 7 million people are going to retire. That's like, you know, almost a third of our workforce. And unfortunately, it's the senior management. It's the upper echelons of the workforce. And now companies are realizing that they don't have the skill base behind them to be able to fill that need. So now they're in a panic, you know, and you can thank the internet for that. And I'll go into greater detail about workforce inclusion and why it's there. But it all comes down to making sure that the skill base is still relevant and still there for the corporations to access and utilize so they can continue to grow. Now, again, another decade later, here we are, 2020, the global call for change. Okay, and this time, this is so much different. Okay, this is game changer, and I'm really glad about it. And it's a multicultural call for change. People from around the world are joining. They've had enough. This is it. And really, it comes down to this. You know, people from now. You know, we talked about the 4 designated groups, but now there's more. We are referring to them as the underrepresented groups. So not only are they Aboriginal people, people with disabilities, visible minorities, and women, it's now internationally trained professionals, youth, mature, new Canadians, Canadian veterans, LGBTQ2. So there's now a whole plethora of knowledge out there which that is available in these underrepresented groups. And these individuals, like yourselves, are all facing challenges to employment. And, you know, people from these groups aren't, you know, in this call for action is basically to say, you know, because we're from these underrepresented groups, we're not looking for charity. We're not looking for you to hire us because we're from the underrepresented groups. They're telling Canadian companies that we want you to stop not hiring us because we're from one of these underrepresented groups. And that's what the call for change is all about, which I'm so happy about. And since in the last month, Equitech has been inundated with companies that are saying, yes, finally, that's what we want to do. So there's more and more organizations joining this to say, we want to make sure that our employment opportunities are being seen by people from these underrepresented groups. We want them to know that we're an organization that they can come to and apply for, okay? So let's move on. I just wanted to make sure you knew the 4 things because it's important that you understand how this all developed as far as, you know, from how a corporation looks at it. So as I talked to you about our labor shortage, the workforce inclusion, as I mentioned, 7 million boomers are going to set to retire in the next 2 decades. That's me. Yay! Hopefully we can retire. A lot of us can't for a couple of reasons. First of all, they can't financially do it. Second of all, they can't go because the knowledge isn't there for them. Their companies can't let them go. So they're asking them to stay and delaying the normal retirement age. So if we used, even if Canada had increased its immigration numbers by 3 times, we're still going to be in this situation. And Canada is not alone. This is all the G20 countries. Okay, they're all facing the same thing. So there's competition for that talent. So what are the programs aimed at mitigating the impact? As I said, we start with delaying the normal age of retirement, but Canada's lucky because we have a large demographic of underrepresented people from these underrepresented. There's skills out there that companies aren't accessing. And they're just beginning to realize that, you know what, we have to do a better job of accessing that knowledge because it's out there. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. This is a graph and explain the situation exactly between developed countries and developing countries. So basically G20 and non-G20. Okay, so as you can see, the demographics on a developing country, you have the youngest age, and let's say this working age starts here at 19. You can see that base there. That's great. That's where majority of the population is. And as they're getting older, there's males in green, females in red, and as they get older, they die off. But you can see, this is all your tax base from a society. This is where your tax revenue is coming from. So you can see this is a healthy society because they can afford to take care of their old as they get older and move on. Well, over here to your left, this is Canada. So as you can see, we have a bubble in the middle, and this is a couple years old. So this graph, so this bubble is actually moving up and up and up. And as you can see, the majority of our knowledge in our workforce ranges in the area from, 35 to 39 to 65, okay? And like I said, it's probably gone up 5 years. So as this bubble moves up and up, it basically will fall over. And what that means is your society is broken. This is the tax revenue. This is what's generating all the money for our social programs, our healthcare and things like that. So companies are trying as hard as they can to fill this out because they realize they got themselves in this corner. Now, how they got here, there's a variety of reasons, but really, what previously happened in the 90s was companies used to treat their workforce like a farmer treats his field. He would prepare a field and leave it, and there's one he'd plant and leave it, and then there's one he'd harvest. So it's always kind of a circular event, so he's prepared, planted, harvest, prepare, plant, harvest. Well, the internet came along. And that's how companies used to work with their workforces, using that prepare, plant, harvest. Well, with the internet, the information became so available, they stopped preparing, they stopped planting, and they just went straight to harvest. And what has happened now is they've come to the point where they realize we don't have any fields to harvest. We've just been doing this off the internet the whole time. So now they find themselves in this situation where you can see right here, and they're running as hard as they can to fill this out with knowledge base. Now they're not alone. Canada's not alone. So we're facing skill competition with, the other commonwealths, Australia, the UK. I mean, our saving grace is nobody wants to move to the States right now, which is Canada's benefit. That's a whole nother reason, but you know why. But ultimately what's going to happen is that clown show will get cleaned up and there will be a proper administration in place and it'll be opening the doors again. But in that time, Canada's got at least a window of opportunity where we can draw everything coming to North America will come to Canada, mostly, more than Mexico. So we're trying as hard as we can to take advantage of that. So that's the situation that you look at when you talk about workforce inclusion, okay? So I wanted to give you that background so you know the business case for diversity when organizations, when you see it or people talk to you, when they talk to you about employment equity, they're compliant. So it's a compliance issue. They talk about diversity. It's a business case. When you hear the word inclusion, they're thinking about the future. And now you're going to hear more companies talking about the call for change, which is exactly what I explained, is that to erase systemic racism within their organization. So that helps you position yourself when you're applying for jobs. Where are you going to find these companies? You're going to find them here at Equitech, okay? And what I'm going to do is, tell you a little bit about our site and how easy it is for you, okay? First of all, we're not a job board, okay? What we are is we're a job feed. We're a job feed that's connected directly to the company's applicant tracking system. That's where all the jobs are. What's the difference, job board and job feed? Well, a job board is a paid per posting business. So any company that advertises on Indeed or LinkedIn or anything else has to pay per job to go on. And it runs about $350 a job, okay? There's a variety of different packages, of course. But as you can understand, companies don't always put all their jobs on Indeed. But what do companies do? They put all their jobs on their company's applicant tracking system, everything, because that's their mainstream application process. So everything goes on their ATS, applicant tracking system we refer to as the ATS. That's what we hook you to, okay? We have a dynamic feed right from the ATS. So you're gonna see jobs there. First of all, you're gonna see jobs there quicker than you'll see them on any job board, because it's a dynamic feed, it's a direct mirror. Anytime they change it, every 4 hours, our feed refreshes, so it's going to be here. As well as you're gonna see jobs that you will not see on job boards. So think of it like this way, Equitech is an aggregator, okay? But unlike traditional aggregators that mine the internet, we mine community organizations like ACCES and the different ones around Toronto and across the country. We work with about 1,800 organizations, not-for-profit, employment-orientated organizations that represent people from all of these underrepresented groups, okay? So that's what our job is. I'm going to show you how our site works. Every day we broadcast employment opportunities, the newest employment opportunities, out to the community organizations. And because of COVID-19 now, we're letting job seekers sign up, so you can receive it as well. I'll go into that for you as well, how that works. Okay, so that's our job, is to take the jobs from the client's applicant tracking system through a variety of feeds, usually an XML feed, and then we distribute them out to you. So you get first dibs at them, you see them first, you get an opportunity to apply to it. So think of it like one-stop shopping. You'd be able to see all the jobs of all these companies, but you'd have to go to every one individually, and that could take you all day. Equitech is the one-stop shopping for you, where we're going to focus on just the most recent jobs. So I'm going to show you how this works. So this is our site, equitech.ca, okay? Very easy. You don't need to register. You don't need to do anything, okay? And how this works is you just simply find the jobs, browse the jobs, and then these are our 3 platforms. Connected is our job feed. This is the one you'll be going to the most. Then we have search by categories, which is just a general list of categories. I'll go into that in a second. And then we have search by employers, which is usually, it's just an alphanumeric listing. If you had a specific employer, that's one of the ways you could find them. So let's look at Connected, the job feed. Might take a second to load because we have 100 different feeds all working at one time. And also I have Zoom open and we're using my laptop. So here we go. This is today. So today we're featuring a new client, which is Second Harvest. This is a not-for-profit organization that rescues food for people and for food banks, and they distribute it out in the food programs across the country. Okay, so as you can see, this is how they put theirs up in just in categories. But as you go down, you'll see these are organizations in alphabetical order, ABB, and let's go and see somebody we all know, Canada Post. We all know Canada Post. Now, these are just the most recent jobs, the newest jobs over the last 24 hours, because you can imagine if we were connecting to everybody's jobs, like all the jobs all the time, this would be humongous. So these are just the most recent jobs over the last 24 hours. If they don't have any new jobs, then we keep their most recent on. Okay, so let's take a look at City of Brampton, for instance. This is a great customer. They've been a client for at least 10 years. Okay, so the City of Brampton, you'd see a position here, advisor, clerk, IT security and risk. You think that's great. You click on the link, and that takes you directly to the job posting at the City of Brampton. Okay, from there, as you can see, here's the position, talks to you about it, and here's the position, and then you would apply directly at the apply button, wherever that is. I think it's, sorry, don't mean to go up and down, making you all confused. At the bottom, this diversity insignia, this is ours. When you see companies using this, this means that they're an Equitech customer, okay, and that they have an outreach strategy. So instead of putting it in print, they'll use this insignia. So you'll see, if in case you run into that in print or somewhere, you know they're an Equitech customer. So you just simply apply to the job. You're directly on the City of Brampton's applicant tracking system. So let's go back and let's say, okay, well, you saw, now this one was July 27th. That's their most recent. They're not doing a lot of hiring right now. A lot of our clients don't have a lot of new opportunities for obvious reasons. But let's say you saw a job here a week ago and it's not on connected, it doesn't mean that it's not still not available. So you can just simply view all jobs, click on that, and this takes you to employer profile page. Now, this page is a little different. It's like a bounce page. Every company has one, and it's a page that's intended to give instructions to you. It talks about their diversity initiative and what they're about, as well as it gives you application instructions. For instance, be sure to identify Equitech as the source, indicate Equitech as the source. So when, this is important, when you're applying to an applicant tracking system, okay, you want to be able to, where you say you saw the job, in that section where you all signed, it says, where did you see this job, or where did you first hear about this job, or where did you come from? And you click on that, there's a drop-down field. That indicates where your resume is going to go. And if you're a job seeker, you don't want to be stuck in with the 50 million people coming from Indeed, right? You want to swim against the stream. And in the case of organizations that are with Equitech, they have tasked specific recruiters with their diversity initiative. So your objective is to try to get your resume to them. And how you do that is when you indicate the source. So be careful when you go to an applicant tracking system and it says, would you like to use your LinkedIn profile to fill this out? You'll go, sure, because it'll save you 10 minutes. Well, now you've just been LinkedIn, you've been put in with all the people from LinkedIn. You're not going to be seen by that diversity recruiter. Okay, so it takes a little bit of work and finessing. And LinkedIn and job boards do this because it helps their metrics. Like they're selling metrics, so they can go back to the company, City of Brampton, and say, look how many people came from LinkedIn, and that's all. And you didn't, you just happened to use LinkedIn to populate it, but that's how they adjust the metrics to look so large. So you have to be careful not to fall into that game. So be sure to identify Equitech as the source. And I'll show you some other techniques and put it in your cover letter as well to make sure that you're going to that diversity recruiter, because that's the person you want to connect to, because they know, like, you're a new Canadian, they understand foreign credentials and different languages and things, and they're hired specifically to attract you. So you want to be able to connect with them. Okay. So that's how, let's close that. So that's it. So that's how Connected works. Okay. It's just the most recent jobs over the last 24 hours. So what you want to do for yourselves, let's go to the second category. Now, you'd only use this once, search by categories, okay? And it's basically a generic list of titles. So you would say your first time coming to Equitech and you wanted to say, okay, I'm in engineering and mining and resource. These would be the companies that would have the jobs that you're looking for. So you would just simply click on the logo and you go to the employer profile page. The employer profile page takes you back to the applicant tracking system, okay? Straightforward. It's not hard, not rocket science. Where do you sign up? If you want to receive, every day we will send you a MailChimp, an email of a link directly to Equitech to Connected. And you just simply click on here, receive job notifications, fill out your name, your email address. That's all we need. You can unsubscribe at any time you want. You don't have to fill out any profiles. You don't have to do anything. It takes a second. But every day you'll be part of our broadcast and we'll send you a MailChimp. It'll feature a particular hot job, a spotlight job that we have, as well as a link that takes you right back to Connected to the newest jobs. So use that, and then you're always going to be first to know. Like I said, even though the MailChimp comes once a day in the morning, the feeds refresh every 4 hours. So you can go back once or twice a day to see if there's any new jobs. Okay. You can also, you'll see there's filtering. You can filter. Now, our filtering, you can either search by employer, what we have here, or you can search by location. Now, our filtering is very limited because we're not a job board. If we were a job board, everybody would be following our format, but because we're taking XML feeds, we only have, we have XML feeds from 100 different applicant tracking systems. So in order to have a filter, and those of you in IT know this, you have to have some common denominators in all the feed. What we can only find in the feeds are 5, which is the name of the job, the hyperlink, the location and the posting date and any employer number associated with it. Okay, so those unfortunately, so if you were going to search by location, you'd have to start with Ontario. Some are listed in Ontario, whereas, you know, you can see Quebec, QU, and these would be ON. There. So here's one how it'd be here at Bank of Canada. So you'd have to follow those. So you'd have to play with it a little bit to get that up. But, or you can just sort of scream through it, whatever you want. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's a direct line directly to the applicant tracking systems. Okay, so any questions about that? That's straightforward. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint again. What did I do with it? I did it right here. There it is. Okay, so I almost left. Wouldn't that have been embarrassing, Sonia? Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about why you're here. Okay, we're talking about online application process. Okay, and what I'm about to share with you, you only use it. Pay very close attention to this. Only do this for job boards or applicant tracking systems. Okay, do not do this when you have somebody's name, when you're sending it directly to them. This is only to deal with the applicant tracking system to get through there, okay? Why do companies use an applicant tracking system? Well, you can thank the internet for that. The internet has created so much noise. It's deafening to them. When I put a job posting out in the internet for an information architect, I'm going to get 3,500 job resumes, applicants in a day, you know, and depending, you know, and it comes from everywhere. I mean, there's bots out there, depending on your LinkedIn program, like the package you have, your LinkedIn could be applying for jobs you don't even know you're applying for. So as a recruiter, you're getting all this information and you just can't manage it. It's impossible. So they had to create applicant tracking systems to deal with the technology that they created from the internet. Okay, so that's what it is. And really, you know, an applicant tracking system is no big deal, okay? But it's the gatekeeper. And you have to understand what happens to your resume. Anything you submit to an applicant tracking system, what's happening to it, you know, because it's the gatekeeper. It's deciding whether you're going to go through or go not. When you go to an ATS, when you go to a job board, when you go to Equitech and you finally get to a company's job posting on an ATS posted online, and you can tell they're using an ATS because it'll ask you to create a profile and you cut and paste your resume in there. If they're not using an ATS, it'll give you an email address. It says send it to resumes@ABC company. If you have that case, do not do this for those, okay? Only if you're going to an ATS, okay? Now, don't get bent out of shape about ATSs, okay? It's just a step in the process, okay? Before the internet, before the applicant tracking systems, you know, some of you probably might remember, you know, probably not. For instance, when I was younger, when I used to go and look for a job, we would go to the, have to go to the company and go up to the human resources department, and they hand you a clipboard with an application. And you fill out the application clipboard and you hand it back to the receptionist. And the receptionist then takes it somewhere to hopefully to a human resources department while you sit down and you wait. And you sit there and wait until somebody comes out and talks to you. Well, that's what the applicant tracking system is. When you go to an ATS, it doesn't mean you're going to get a job. You're so many steps away from the job. All it is are you going to get a call? Are you actually going to meet somebody face to face? That's all it does. So when you go to an ATS, people think like, oh, we got to send everything out to them, right? And they run the risk of being overqualified or giving too much information that disqualifies them because the ATS isn't looking for it, okay? So, I mean, the ATS doesn't decide whether you get the job, but if you can't get through the ATS process, I guarantee you will not get a job, okay? So we're going to talk about how to get through that process. So that's how it fits. So don't get bent out of shape over it, okay? Applying online, there's a few steps you have to follow. First of all, follow all the application instructions. Do not take any shortcuts. Don't add anything that you think you'd add. Just give them exactly what they're looking for at this process, okay? Remember, Nobody's reading your resume at this time. This is technology screening this for you. So follow the instructions. There are no shortcuts. Don't try, you know, blank screening, you know, keywords or things like that. Second of all, when you're applying online and you're going to an ATS or a job board, don't send your primary resume, okay? Now I know a lot of you are going, what? I'm going to say it again. Don't send your primary resume. Now is not the time for it. What you're going to do is you have to craft an e-resume specifically for that job. And I'm going to show you how to do it. It's not hard. It sounds like a lot of work, but to tell you the truth, that's your job right now. It's your work to find work. Because if it was easy, none of us would be here, including myself or Sonia, because you'd all be employed and we'd be the ones in the programs. But in any case, the best way to do this is you know, there are no shortcuts. Don't just send your primary resume. You only give that to somebody when you're face-to-face or you direct email contact. And I'll show you where that fits in. But at this particular point, you're going to create an e-resume. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Be sure to identify the source of where you heard the position. Again, that's going to dictate which channel your resume is going to go into. And in your particular case, you want to get to that diversity recruiting initiative. So don't be lazy and just say, oh, I saw it on Indeed. Well, there you go. You're in with 50 million people. Or LinkedIn. There you go on. You're in 200 million people. You know, what you want to do is you want to be in the pool with 10 people, right? And they're specifically, that recruiter is specifically looking for people from the qualified people from the underrepresented groups who fit the skills. So it couldn't be a better scenario for you. So you want to get there, okay? Oops. Okay, so finding a job, all right? We work, you've probably heard this before. We work in the gig economy, right? That is basically when companies put a job posting on their ATS, they needed that person a week ago. That job posting is the perfect 10. They're fishing for the perfect 10, but they need somebody for that position so bad they're willing to take an 8, okay? So if you have 80% of the qualifications, that's your go line, okay? Throw a resume, an e-resume at it, make an application. If you don't have 80% of the qualifications, find something else. There's lots of positions there on Equitech, but that's the line. And be honest when you're doing this, okay? So you want to make sure that you've increasing your chances to get through to a call. When you find a job posting that you have 80% of the qualifications for, okay, you're going to follow the rule. That's this, which I have here. First of all, read the employment opportunity thoroughly, okay? Read it. People don't read anymore, and you miss valuable information. There's no hurry. You found the job. Take a breath. Read it. Think about it. Read it from start to finish, okay? That's the most important thing, because people just make assumptions. They read the first 3 or 4 sentences or scan it, and then they apply quickly, and they've missed the mark. And then they wonder why I don't get any calls back, because you haven't read the instruction. You have to read it thoroughly and understanding. By reading it, whoops, I'm sorry. Here we go. Whoops, next one. Reading it, you understand the job function completely, okay? So that's really important, because you're going to work in that into your application. They're going to go into detailed description about the function of the job. They're going to talk about the business unit. And if you're applying to, you know, a big company like Bell Canada, you could be at Bell Canada all day long applying for IT positions, because Bell Canada has 15 different business units that all operate as individual companies. Excuse me. You might have the same or a similar looking IT position, but there's distinct differences in every one of them, which you're going to have to catch and reflect in each of those applications to be able to stand out and to get through the ATS, because, you know, they're all not the same. There's all little changes to it. So you have to be keen enough and quick enough to find it, okay? Understanding the job function is important too. Even just the title, because companies are not going by the NOC code, the National Occupation Classification. For those of you who know it, it's, you know, that big green binder that's great for keeping your door open now. But companies have changed that. And, you know, they've done that because they want to open up the skill base a lot more. So, you know, an example is men won't apply to be receptionists, but they will be concierge. You know, so the position, the title has changed. The job is the same. The title has just changed. Call center people, because nobody wants to be call center people. Now they're embedded channel specialists and things. So, you know, looking at the title, don't get freaked out. Look at the title, but read the job. And then you'll understand, oh, this is what it is. But they're trying to make the jobs either open to a wider demographic of people or make it more interesting. So by changing the names, people look at it. Some people get scared and it works against them, but you know, this is what the companies are doing. So be sure to read everything and understand it, okay? Now, what you're gonna do next in the L is this is it. You're gonna list the 10 key words from the job posting, okay? So the job posting is a major piece of your application. People say, don't copy the words from the job posting. No, the job posting is there for you to use. It's like an essay question, okay? Like when you're writing an essay, you get an essay question, and in your essay and your thesis, you're using a big chunk of the essay question. That's exactly what the job posting is for. So use it, use their words, because that's what the applicant tracking system is looking for. It's looking for keywords. You've all heard that term. Keywords. You have to be able to identify their keywords and incorporate them into your e-resume. And so the technology goes, oh, this has everything we're looking for, and passes you on to somebody to call you. That's how it is. In fact, when applicant tracking systems were first started and they started using them, nobody told job seekers about the keywords. So, you know, companies started using these ATSs, and they're not cheap. They're like $5,000 a month. Like, companies don't own them, they rent them. And they're changing them all the time. But they realized that, you know, at the end of the month, they'd say, what came through our ATS? Nothing was there. And they go, well, why isn't that? You know, it's because people didn't know to list the keywords and things. So the ATSs were screening everybody out. So now they've got questions. You see them, those 10 questions. Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? Those are the keywords. So take them, okay? Take all that information. And when you're applying to a job, I'm a strong believer in this, is you want to use documentation, right? Cut and paste a copy of the job posting in a Microsoft Word document, and that's your working copy. Carve it up, highlight it, do whatever you want, but keep a copy of it. And you're going to use that to script your e-resume, which will be the second page. And you keep those together. So you always want to keep a copy of what you're submitting online, okay? So then you're going to take these keywords. Now that you've read it, you found it, you've read it, you understand the job, you've got the keywords, and you're going to enter them into a resume. No, somebody's car alarm's going off in the back. Hope it's not mine, but it'll go off. Okay, so this is the application process. You break this down into steps. You can't go from application to job, okay? It doesn't work. You've missed 4 steps right there. This is how it works. Once you find a job, here it goes. You start with an e-resume. That's what you submit to your applicant tracking system or job board. The e-resume gets you the call, all right? That's all it does. That's all it's intended to do. That's your step, okay? When you're creating this e-resume, you're just thinking, I want to get a call. I just want to get a call. You want to get face-to-face with somebody. At the call, when somebody from the company calls you, that's when they're going to give you their personal email address, and you're going to send them your primary resume. That's when you do it, when you're face-to-face with somebody. You got to get through that technology, get somebody to call you. Okay, then you send them that primary resume with all your information on it. Okay, and then at that point, the call gets you the interview, right? The interview is perfect. And then from there, because you've done all these beautiful interviewing techniques with ACCES, you know everything, you got it nailed, you get the job. But it all starts here, to getting from an e-resume to the call. That's what your major, that's one of the areas in which most people have the trouble, because they try to jump from the application process to the job or to the interview, okay? So you want to break into these steps, okay? So here's a template cover, and I have some e-resumes I did for you that I'll show you, but here's a format, just, you know, like, this is just a general format. You can use whatever format and be, a certain amount of creativity. But remember, when you're applying to an applicant tracking system, bland is good. Okay, so careful on the bolds and the bullet points and everything. The blander, the better. Okay, because remember, it's technology. Use internet-friendly fonts, Tahoma, Arial, Times Roman, things like that. Okay, don't use any colors, don't do anything, because you're submitting it to technology. We've all got emails from somebody where it's one big paragraph, and that's because there's been a conflict between the two email formats, right? It just produces that. Well, that could happen to your e-resume too. So you want to make sure that, it doesn't turn out to be one big long sentence, a page long, because they're not going to read at it, okay? So the first thing you do, okay, in your e-resume, okay, is your profile or your thesis or your narrative, that opening statement, right, that you have. That's your first thing, okay? People make the mistake, you've heard this, when you meet somebody face-to-face, you have 15 seconds to make an impression, okay? When you send somebody something in writing, you got 17 words before they've decided if they're going to read on or not, okay? So this narrative, what you have, you're thinking it as your thesis. Remember, I told you this is a good way to think of your job post, the job posting and your e-resume. You have a thesis in front of you, and you take the thesis. The thesis or essay question is always contained within the thesis. Then and your thesis is a paragraph long, and then you spend then you spend the rest of your thesis, right? Or rest of your essay supporting your thesis, right? So that's what you're going to do, the same idea, okay? So in your narrative, the opening statement, you have 17 words to make me read on, okay? Do not waste them with something like, I saw your job posting on Indeed and it looked like a wonderful place, and I think I could be a valuable contributor to your workforce because myself, I'm excited by this position. And you lost me, right? I've made the decision. I haven't got the time to read this story, okay? What you want to do is you want to hit them right there. I'm an information architect with more than 5 years experience and a total of 10 in these platforms. Tell them right away up front. Don't have to be rude. Don't have to be brusque, but you have to be straight to the point, okay? Go right for the point, okay? You're going to take all the 10 keywords that you found or the questions, okay? And you're going to put them all into a cohesive first person sentence, okay? And this is the way it works. I mean, they're asking you, do you have this platform? And your answer is, yes, I have this platform. Do you have this degree? Yes, I have this degree, right? People don't ask you a question like, do you like eating pizza? And you respond with no, or saying, yes, I like hamburgers. Like you want to answer the question effectively, right? It's, by including the question in your answer. And I'm going to show you how this works. And so then you're going to create that. So your opening statement is your story, how it applies to that particular position, okay, that you're applying for. Your work experience and everything, back up your thesis by talking about your work experience, okay? Highlight and focus on experiences that are relevant to the position you're applying for, okay? You'll get lots of time to talk about your work experience. Now is not the time to do it. Just tell them what they need to know as it pertains to that job. If it has nothing to do with the job, don't talk about it, okay? You can talk about it later, but not right now. The line between overqualifying yourself and being qualified is very, very fine, okay? So you want to be good, but you don't want to be that good. Remember, all you're doing here is getting the call, okay? That's all you're doing is going to get the call. So try not to overqualify yourself. And I'll tell you, when you overqualify yourself, I mean, it's easy because you can get carried away. You want to tell them how great you are. It's a fine line between wearing a cape and not wearing a cape. But from an employer's perspective, I know that, it's easier for you to find a job when you have a job. So if you're applying for a job and you're overqualified for the position, I know that as soon as you find a gig that you're more happy with that's more along your lines, you're going to leave me. But on the other hand, you're trying to tell me, the employer, that I could do my job, this job, with my eyes closed. But you can see how the message is being missed, okay? So be careful not to do that. If you have gaps, okay, don't worry about gaps or job hopping or things like that. Don't worry about it. You know, if you have gaps, now everybody's got gaps. In fact, if you don't have gaps, they wonder what's wrong with you. They become suspicious. I mean, an individual like myself that's worked 30 years for the same company, Equitech, they look at me because it's a problem. It's, you know, old dog, new tricks. We're not going to be able to train this guy. You know, he's so stuck in his ways, stuff. So I have to, you know, for me and people in my situation, you have to break that up to show a progression. It's okay to work for the same company for 30 years, but show that you've advanced and you've learned, and you have to break that up. And highlighting features that you've learned that apply specifically to the job that you're applying for. Education, whoops, did it again, sorry. Education, as you did with the work experience, list all the education and courses that are relevant to the posting. You can list all your courses, but I mean, bring the attention to the ones that are highlighted in the job posting, what they're looking for. You'll have lots of time to talk about it later, okay, when you're face to face, but right now this is just to get you the call, okay? So that's easily how you format it. Now I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Okay, and we're almost running out of time here, so I want to go through quick so I can answer some of these questions. Okay, so here's a job posting that I picked up from Sun Life, one of our clients, okay, Agile Marketing. So this is what I did. I found the position, okay. So this is basically a marketing position, you know, even though it has a nice title, you can see they're creating campaigns. After I read it, I understood it, okay. So I cut and pasted, and what I did was I went through and I highlighted statements from here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, I'm going to plagiarize the heck out of this thing, and I'm going to use it to my advantage. And I'm using their words. I'm not using, you know, skills I learned on my words. I'm interpreting, okay, they're looking for this. I learned that at this job, and I'm using their words to describe it. Okay, so I'm taking as much from this as I could possibly can, and you can see I highlighted it. Okay, and here's one thing too. One thing I want to point out. So let's say the only requirement was 5+ years. I doubt you can see this. Let me make sure I'm, sorry. Sorry, told you I'd screw it up. Okay, here we go. Everybody can see it. This is the marketing position. Okay, so I got so excited here about applying for the job. See how it happens? Anybody can get caught up in this. So I cut and pasted in this Microsoft Word, and then I highlighted these words. And this is what I'm going to take. I'm going to carve this baby up using their words, and I'm going to create an e-resume using their statements, okay? And I wanted to point this out. Experience, 5+ years of experience. See how it is? 5+ years. Okay, you want to use exactly those characters, because remember, that's going to be a key word. And the technology is not reading it. He's looking for, you know, it's looking for characters in a specific order. Now, in this case, let's say the only requirement was 5+ years, and you had 10 years experience, and you wrote an e-resume, and you said, I have 10 years experience in data analyst and performing analyst roles, okay? What do you think is going to happen? Naturally, it's going to get dumped because it's looking for 5+ years. So the way to answer it would be with more than 5+ years at a total of 10, or you can just say more than 5 years experience and let them do the math. But what I've done is I've included that keyword. So it's important to make sure that, you know, you've included these, okay? And then of course you've got your technical skills. So I've taken that, and here's my e-resume that I'm submitting, okay? So I'm a firm believer, always put a header on stuff. Always put your name on pages. I know it's the internet, it's attached to your profile, it's never gonna get separated, but in the event that somebody prints it, it gets lost, whatever, my name is always on it. Because if it isn't, they're not gonna put any effort into finding you. They're just gonna go, oh shucks, that was a good candidate. Oh well, maybe they'll apply again. So I put my name, my address, one phone number, okay, something that you answer, because they will leave you a message once, they will not call back. And then of course my email. use a professional email address. I'm sure everybody does, okay? Not anything like lovemoney@yahoo.com or anything like that. You can also include your LinkedIn profile here if you wanted to, your hyperlink like that. You can even put my full resume or my primary resume available upon request, either at the top or at the bottom. The choice is yours. But if you want to get that message across that this is just a snapshot, this is your e-resume, that's fine. You can put it there, put it all in the header, that information. Then I use the position in reference to right from the job. You don't have to be in that folder, but again, I always like to do that. It gives me a starting point. And then here's my thesis. This is my narrative. This is my 17 words. So if you read this, a performance analyst with more than 5 years experience monitor analyzing key performance indicators and the success of past marketing campaigns. I'm proficient in developing marketing strategy through strong understanding, blah, 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 blah. If you take the time and look for it, it all came from here. Exactly. I could do that. I'm just describing what I can do in their words, using their words to describe what I can do. Okay. Everything here comes from the keywords. So when the applicant tracking system is going through looking for the keywords, it's going to hit on everything. And it's going to come back saying, here's a resume with all 10 of the 10 things we're looking for as you go to the call list. Now I'm going to use my work experience to back up my thesis. So I have gaps here. In 2018 to now, actually this is a little old, so 2019, various contracts because I immigrated to Canada. That's perfectly fine. I don't have to go into great detail because, I was an Uber driver here. Everybody knows that you come to Canada, everybody's got to eat. You got to make a living, okay? You're trying to find your way. So everything that I did here in these contracts has no value. All those jobs, being an Uber driver or delivering food or working at Starbucks or anything or working at Amazon, brought me no skills, that transferable skills that I could apply to this position. So I'm not going to bring a lot of attention to it. But what I did do was my past experiences at the Bank of India, okay, where I talked about exactly the functions. Now, again, I got all these words from the job posting. So I'm describing what I did because when I'm reading this job posting, I'm realizing, oh, I did do that. So why do I want to change the words? I don't want to change. I want to use their words to describe, yes, I did do that. So I'm using as much of their words as I possibly can to explain and to describe my experiences at that past job. And I'm doing the same thing here, okay? And you can get the idea. I'm going to send a copy of this to Sonia so she can pass this around if you want. And then in my education, okay, the same thing. Now I didn't go into great detail here, but you can actually put bullet points there. Again, if it applies to the job posting, list all your education. I mean, if you have MBA and things, that's right. Go ahead and list it, or a doctorate, put it there because it's something to be proud of. And you should, there's nothing wrong with a little bravado at that point. Now, one of the things I did do, as you can see, is this, knowing that this is an institute, this is not in Canada or North America. I was concerned with the employer, with the recruiter understand it. So I put a little ranking for the institution. There's nothing wrong with giving a shout out to the old Aldermalder right here and letting them know a little bit about your organization, okay? Just in case they don't Google it to find out, but just to let them know that, this is not an online university. This is a reputable institution within your country. Okay, and the same thing below. Okay, all the courses that I did when I was at the Bank of India. Okay, and I'd list them as well. My technical skills. Okay, if you look, you'd see there's exactly the same skills that they're looking for on the job posting. Okay. So there's an example of how I did. I would have more, but why would I want to enter it now at this particular point? I just tell them I have what you need, so I get a call. Because when I get face-to-face with somebody, they're going to ask me, do you have more? And I'm going to say, funny, you should ask. Here's my complete profile and my primary resume that has all my experience. Okay. So here's another example. Job description. This is Wood Engineering. Okay. They're an engineering firm. So this is just to give you a variation, okay, of e-resumes, how I would do it. So we have the job posting. Again, Microsoft Word. I'm just carving this baby up with my highlighter, looking for things I'm going to use. Okay, 5 to 10 years experience, highlight it. Here we go. Here's my e-resume. Here's my name, my address, and everything. Quoting the job number. Okay, risk engineer. Choice is yours. How you want to do this, but I'm just throwing out some thinkers for you. So here's my narrative. Now, this one's a little different than the first one because it would have been so large and it really didn't need it. And it's more of a technical position, a project risk engineer, right? I decided to use point form. That's how I used my narrative. So, and as you can see, one of the things I wanted to stress here, okay, is global integrity management experience and international. I have international experience on an international level. And the reason why I do that is because a lot of people get hung up because they're, internationally trained professionals thinking that, oh, Canadian experience. Canada's no big deal, Canadian experience. In fact, all the companies in this country, even my little company, you either are directly or indirectly dealing in the global economy, or you're not going to be here in 3 years. Okay, because this is a global marketplace we are. So I want people with international experience. If I'm in a business that's just focused on the Canadian experience, well, that's a problem, because if your business's vision is just Canadian, you're not going to be around, because that market is going to shrink and it's not going to be there. And then you're going to be back in the same position you are now. So I want to stress to this recruiter that I am very familiar with Canadian experience because I have global integrity management experience. I'm a person of international education. Yes, I'm familiar. What you know in Canada and what in the UK or Australia and the rest of the Commonwealth, yes, I'm very familiar with it. I might not have experience, but I'm very familiar with it. So that's why I always would stress that. I suggest that. But when you look at this point form, again, this is exactly in the job posting. I'm using exactly their words because I know the ATS is going to be looking for that, exactly their words. So I just put them in point form. Instead of writing a huge 2-page narrative, which it would have turned out to be to put all this in, I just used the point form. My education works this way, and I put it in chronological order. Everything in chronological order. Don't put 2 years here, 4 years there. They want it in chronological order because if you don't, it looks like you're hiding something, okay? So always do it in chronological order. Same thing with the work experience. Now you can, of course, expand, put bullet points under that. I just wanted to, give you the idea. This e-resume document, you save it as a Word document. Okay, and when you get to the application process of the job posting, you're filling out the profile and it says download or cut and paste, you're going to download this document. You're not your primary document, this one, or you're going to cut and paste this document into the resume. Okay, now it's important to make sure that the keywords are in the resume portion because that's what gets checked. The cover letter gets read separately. Okay, and usually secondary. So what you want to do is you can actually take this and expand on it and make that your cover letter as well as you want and go and put a little more information in that. That's fine. But make sure all the keywords, put them in both, but definitely make sure that they're in the e-resume because that's what gets checked. Okay, so your cover letter, let's talk about this really quickly. You wanted to get to that diversity recruiter that I told you about, okay? Let's say you go to the ATS and you click in the drop-down fields and Equitech isn't there. It's supposed to be there, but it's not there. Okay, you want to be able to identify that you came from Equitech because that's part of their diversity recruitment initiative, and you're not comfortable saying that. You don't have the words to say that. Well, if you wanted to, you can use this template. A couple of the other ACCES programs that some of the other workshops I've done, they use this as well until you get the words. And it's just basically, it's me. It's a paragraph to me explaining this is why this candidate's coming to you. It's coming from your diversity outreach strategy. If you have any questions about Equitech and why this candidate's coming, don't bother the job seeker. You call me. I'll explain it to you. Okay. So you could use this as well. And then you just cut and paste your cover letter under here, okay? But it basically says, it self-identifies you right there that you came through their diversity outreach strategy, okay? Send it, use it, choice is yours. You don't have to, but just if you're not comfortable doing it, this is a way in which you can break the ice and eventually you'll get comfortable. When you write an e-resume and you're finished doing that, what you want to do is you want to give it to somebody to read. Okay, give it to your employment counselor, bring it to your friend, give it to your spouse, give it to somebody you trust. And the feeling should be, they should be left with the impression that they want to call you to get more information. Okay, so that's what it is. It's not kind of like, oh yeah, that's good. It could be like, oh, I want to get this person. I want to get a little more information from this person, because that's what you want to do. Okay, this is like SEOing your resume, right? Is what you want to do is your search engine optimizing, because the applicant tracking system is going to hit on all the keywords and it's going to come out and they're going to see that this is a person that has all the skills. Okay, and then you're going to end up into that call list. So let's do a quick, oh, I did it again. Let's do, where are you? So, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So let's go back. Now, quick recap before I answer your questions, okay? I know I went through this really quickly. So be sure to follow the rule. Read the employment opportunities, right? Went over that. Understand the function. Keywords, deadly. This is it. That's where the game's played, the keyword. And then enter them into your e-resume. The e-resume just gets you the call. You're just focusing on this step at that point. That's all it does, is you want to get the call, okay? The call is where you're going to get face-to-face, and that's when you're going to give them the primary resume, and that's where your selling skills are going to take over. Right now, right at this point, you're just dealing with technology and you want to get through it, okay? So be careful. Just give them what they want, give them the facts, give it to them straight, okay? And then, of course, your e-resume, you treat it like an essay, okay? And that's what you do. So hopefully those tips will help. So I'm going to take, wow, a lot of questions here. Okay. Okay, who can be identified as a visible minority? Okay, well, under the definition of the Employment Equity Act, it's anybody who's not white is considered a visible minority, okay? So if you want to get that definition, all you need to do is Google Employment Equity Act, or even Google definition of visible minority in Canada, okay? And it should bring you to the act, which will explain that to you. How are you able to direct access to the ATS of companies? Aren't the privacy limitations put by these companies? Who can the companies available to? Well, you go and look at our site, and companies hire us because we're their advertising firm. They give us permission to access their applicant tracking system. They're the ones who, we do it in two ways. Their administrator either applies and gives us an XML feed, or we build a crawler to crawl on it. And it's all legit. So yes, it's okay. And the companies pay a subscription to get a job on our job feed. What happens for earlier job postings if new ones aren't posted? Well, they'll still be there. Remember, connected is just the most recent jobs. So click on view all jobs, and that'll take you to the page. And then you go to the company's ATS where all of their jobs are listed. But we're just on our job feed, just putting the jobs over the most recent 24 hours or the most recent, because there'd just be too many jobs to go through. How exactly are candidates grouped by advertising agencies for ATS screening? I don't understand that question. They're not actually grouped by advertising agencies for, I'm sorry, Masha. Basically, if you're thinking about our agencies looking for one particular demographic, their group, well, if they do, they would identify usually in the job posting to say, you know, Indigenous candidates are encouraged to apply. So you know they're looking for more Indigenous candidates than they are the general population. What's the difference between jobs listed on an Equitech platform and those listed on all jobs, basically all jobs from the same employer? Well, we're just doing the one-stop shop where we're showing you just the most recent jobs, okay? These might be old questions now. Can we put the city in the location? Yeah, you can put the city in the filter in the location, but again, you know, not all the jobs are going to have the same location. It's identified different ways. Sometimes some will have city, some will just have province. So you'll have to play a couple times. Once we describe the job alert protection. No, you're going to receive, sorry, once we subscribe, will we receive job alerts respective to a particular area of expertise? No, you're going to receive a MailChimp with a link that goes back to what I just showed you on Connected. You'll have to mine through that. Permanent resident living outside of the country to apply for a job and run Canadian address. No, tell them that you're, I just lost you, sorry. What's the difference between Canadian number? If I ask the application to use the current location, use your current location. Tell them that you're from out of the country, but you are coming and when you're arriving. Do I include new job opportunity? Whoops, do you include new job or do you apply some kind of? No, just the newest ones. Okay, and people keep asking me questions here. I'm losing you, sorry. On the cover letter, should one use keywords as well? Yes, why not? Do it, put it everywhere. Put them as much as possible. So am I missing any more? 68 questions. Did I do it? I think that's it, right? Nobody's answering any more. Somebody sent me a note saying no more questions. That'll be it.
All right, awesome.
Oh, somebody just sent me one. Is that at the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it, sir. How? Okay, got it. Well, they recognize functional resume, not in chronological order. Well, what's going to happen is the resume, the ATS is going to recognize the characters. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's a functional resume or not. It's looking for characters. It's looking for those keywords. So if they're not in your functional resume, it's not going to do it. And in chronological order, no. It's probably not going to recognize that unless it's asking specifically in the instructions, you know, when you have a drop-down field, but somebody will eventually be reading that in chronological order. Job Scan, Mohammed, I'm glad you brought this out. Job Scan is perfect, is a great tool, okay? It's going to show you what an ATS will look at like. So when you put your e-resume into Job Scan, if the whole resume shows up, that's a great job, okay? So that's what you want. If you just put it in and it says, oh, there's only 4 or 5 jobs, well, you know what the ATS, or 4 or 5 words, you know what the ATS is going to see, okay? So yes, I like Job Scan. Job Scan works. Any software identifying? Yes, Job Scan, that's good. But they're not hard to find. The keywords are not really hard to find because they're either in the questions. When you're applying online, it asks you the questions. Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? And you're indicating yes or no, yes or no. Well, those are the keywords. But they're also easy to spot because they're usually preceded by must have or should have or, you know, needs to have this experience. So they stand out pretty good. That's why I highlight things and I try to take phrases. Can I apply out of provinces jobs? Absolutely. And tell them. You see, applying out of province now is fine. Make sure you're using your current location because the company will know that nobody pays for relocation anymore. Nobody. So they know if you're coming to Calgary, odds are you're moving there anyway. So that's why you're applying for the job. How do you let recruiters know in the call step that the primary resume is different? Well, you can simply put on your e-resume, you could say my full resume available upon request or something like that. Plus you have a link to your full resume that you have on LinkedIn. You can put there. So tell them like that. So that's fine. Will the ATS recognize function? No. Can ATS read tables? No. Can you please share links of free resources to compare resume to resumes to beat, and I don't have any. You can Google that and do that yourself. How important is cold calling and emailing for jobs compared to applying through an ATS? Well, no, okay, that's that's another function. Don't just drop what you're doing and just use this. This is another arrow to use in your quiver. So continue cold calling and emailing and doing what you're doing as well. Most of companies now are directing you to their applicant tracking system anyway. When they say, and you go to a company and you call them and say, I'm looking for a job and this, and they say, great, go to our site. Well, that's the ATS. So they're going to send you there anyway, okay, to apply for it. But don't stop doing what you're doing, okay? Use Equitech as an additional resource for you in addition to what you're doing. You're looking for a job. You want to use everything that's available. And this particular tool just happens to be specifically tailor-made for you because companies are trying to attract you. So that's why you should be looking at it as well and incorporating it in your job search. Okay, did I get everything? I think I got everything. And how to identify support or receive the posting. According to use Equitech. How do we select Equitech at the point of specifying the resource? Okay, so when you go through your profile and you're filling out a profile on the applicant tracking system, it says, where did you see this job? And you click on it and there's a drop-down field and it has everything listed there. Equitech should be in there. If they're one of our clients, it'll say Equitech. If it doesn't say Equitech, then do it in your cover letter. But in that source, click other or community group or something. Don't click Indeed or any of the bigger job boards because your resume is going to get shared into that pool. Okay, so remember, as a job seeker, you want to swim against the fish, right? Swim against the stream. You want to get into that smaller pool. I can't send the recording to you. While applying for a job, visible minority and gender is asked, doesn't really matter. I mean, it's how you do it. You can say, recently, doesn't really matter the gender if you want to. They're going to pick it up from your name. So, don't get too specific. I mean, the self-identification it's kind of general. You want to identify that that you are, depending how comfortable you are. If you want to say say that you're a visible minority candidate, that's fine. If you're not comfortable doing that and just want to say you're part of the demographics that your diversity initiative is targeting, that's fine too. So take a look at some, you could Google and say, ways of self-identifying, and use some of those examples as well. Or you can just use the Equitech cover page. But in time, you'll develop your own. You'll feel comfortable doing it and taking a look at different ones. You just want to get the message across at this point that you're one of the diversity candidates. How long should we create the e-resume for ATS screening? How long should, that's a good question. It's the internet, so it's one page, right? So, I mean, you shouldn't be more than 2 pages, really. It's a brief snapshot, right? Remember, because you just want to get, they want to look at it and say, oh, wow, this is great information. I'm going to call this person to get more, right? You don't want it to be lacking any information, and you don't want it to be too much. You want to be just right that they're going to say, oh, this is keen. I'd like to give this person a call. Is it okay to underline the section headings on the e-resume? If you absolutely need to. I mean, like if you think so, sure. As long as the characters are there. Well, okay, I'm sorry, Diane, you're saying, I'm reading this out loud. You guys don't know what question I'm looking at. I'm talking about Diane. How do you handle it when you do not have a college or university degree, ask for the position, but you have extensive work experience that qualifies? Well, I mean, the education, you're going to have to, that's a prerequisite. A lot of people are going to need that education. So I would try to get the education, take the courses. If you don't have it, disclose that, you know, you don't have to say, I don't have this, but they'll pick it up when you're talking about your education that it's not there. But you can play it up in your narrative as well as in when you're describing your work experience, when you're in your previous jobs, how those skills that you learned at that previous job transform to give you the skills that you could do this job. Play that up. But in the education, don't make it up. Don't anybody ever lie, because they'll check you out. They'll check you out, and if they find out you're lying, you're blacklisted. Okay, so don't ever do that. If you haven't got it, just omit it and take your chances that way. Jessica, no, you can use 2 pages, Jessica, but it's the internet. It's one long. You just don't want to make it a novel. You don't want to make it as long as your primary. Remember, your primary resume has your entire life on it, so you should give it the time it needs, like the space it needs. 5 years working, but has relevant. Okay, here's a good question. If the candidate is less than 5-year work experience, but has relevant required skills, so you're looking at the skills of the job posting. So as long as you fall into that 80% line, and where you're lacking is the 5 years, they might, you know, go ahead and apply for it because you have 80% of the qualifications in the relevant experience and everything. It just means you're missing a couple of years. They might take that. Go ahead and apply for it. But that's, remember, providing you've got 80% of the qualifications. Under the education, you mentioned you don't overqualify. So considering you're an MBA, if a company asks for a high school diploma, you mentioned what? Okay, I got to read this. Considering you're an MBA, if the company asks for a high school diploma and you mention the same in your resume, is it okay to do the same where the portal asks you what's your highest level of education? Yeah, to tell them you have an MBA. I'm not really following you with this, Joel. Under the education section, if you have an MBA, disclose you have an MBA. I mean, in your education, that's an accomplishment. All your levels of high school, even if it's asking for high school diploma. Not a lot of companies are asking for high school diploma, just high school diploma. It's usually more. MBAs are usually are standard now. It's, you know, most organizations in their professional positions are asking candidates for an MBA or close to. So how accurate is JobScan webs for checking? I think it's pretty accurate. Should reveal our gender? No. Or not in favor of men? That's a good question. No, I wouldn't. Like, you're reading too much into this, okay? They're looking for skills. They're not looking for gender, and they're not looking for specific demographics. What they're trying to do is they're realizing that all their jobs are coming, all the applicants are coming from one pool. They want to be able to open up to see that skill set. So they want to remember, they want to open up to those underrepresented demographics that are out there. You don't have to go in great detail. You can just say, you know, I'm a member of the underrepresented, you know, use their words. If they saying, you know, we support employment equity, saying, I see your organization supporting employment equity, and myself being a member of the underrepresented groups, ta-da, you self-identify. That's all you need to do. If you have a disability, you don't need to disclose that you have a disability. You don't need to disclose the nature of your disability. You're protected from the charter rights for that. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. By grouping, I mean mention candidates coming from Indeed, LinkedIn, etc. Yes, that's what I'm meaning. Sorry. How long should we create? Oh, I think I've done that. Okay, let's go down. And I think I got everybody. Oh, sorry. Only does ATS fill out a resume based on a percentage match? It bases no. It bases out on the keywords. Okay, it's looking for, like in the questions, do you have 5 years experience? You have to say, yes, I have 5 years experience. Okay. So, you know, that's what it's doing. That's what it's looking at. How do we know that the particular company is using an ATS? Because it'll have questions on it. It'll ask you to create a profile. It'll be fairly obvious. Did I lose everybody? No. Okay. Okay. So guys, I think you have lots of questions here. I think you have a lot of good questions, but I think you're going to be okay. And it sounds to me like you've all got the idea of what to play with it. You know, again, what I tried to share with you is just a general overall, okay? So you go ahead and fill out some e-resumes and start submitting them and see what happens, okay? Remember, you just want to get the call. And remember, you're only doing this when you're applying to an ATS or a job posting. Because if you call somebody and they're talking to you and say, oh, send me your resume, then send them your primary resume. Don't send them this, because you're already past the technology stage. Okay, well, I got to jump, so I'm sorry. But anyway, I enjoyed it, and perhaps we can do this again sometime. And that's it. Enjoy the day.
Thank you so much, William. That was a lot of information. You were able to just do it in one quick webinar. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for answering like every single question. I know we still have a lot. Maybe we'll have you come back so you can answer some more questions later.
I'm always available.
Thank you. Thank you so much, William. If you have to go, you can go. I'm just going to run over some few more slides for people to know what to do next.
Okay, sounds great. Good luck, everyone. And remember, go to Equitech, sign up under the job seekers so you can start getting the jobs, okay? And feel free to hit me at LinkedIn. I'll be happy to. Okay, talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, William. And thank you all for watching today's webinar. It was a great turnout. So I just want to let everyone know, if you are interested in signing up for more webinars, we've got a lineup of webinars in August. So our next one is next week, Thursday, August 13th, called Exploring Career Opportunities at RBC Insurance. So Diana Keldy, she's done webinars with us in the past as well. She's coming back to run a webinar with us. So go to accessemployment.ca/online event series and sign up for it. If you'd like to know what kind of programs and services that we are offering, please go to our website and click on our programs and services section. You'll be able to see all of our bridging programs and other programs that we offer as well. And we do have other webinars going on our site, Employment Ontario webinars. For that, please check out our calendar of events. And if you are interested in checking out past webinars, blogs or articles that we have, there's a lot of resources on our eAccess page, which is eaccess.accessemployment.org. And if you want to check out or meet other people and just kind of practice your English conversation skills, sign up for our online Talk English Cafe. We have added several more sessions. So there's, I believe there are over 7 sessions or close to that every week. Check out accessemployment.ca/Talk English Cafe. And we are running all of our programs currently online. We are working 9 to 5. It is business as usual at ACCES. It is just, we are doing it virtually or over the phone. So call your closest ACCES location and ask to speak with an employment consultant, and they can start helping you with your job search right away. And if you are overseas and you are moving to Canada soon, you might be eligible for our pre-arrival program. For that, please email cec@accessemployment.ca. And again, thank you for attending today's webinar. There is a survey after the webinar. Please do fill it out. And if you'd like to watch the webinar again, if you want to watch the recording or share the recording, please note that your Zoom registration link turns into a recording about, I guess, 2 to 3 hours after the webinar. So hold on to that link. You can watch it again, or feel free to share it with your friends, and follow us on social media to find out what's happening at ACCES on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Everyone, I hope you have a great day or evening ahead, and we'll see you next week for our next webinar. Take care and bye-bye.